I had this realization recently that if I was going to try to convince musicians to work out and take care of their health, I would need to go about it in an unorthodox way. Because obviously, just the health benefits and the endurance benefits and the longevity benefits don't really seem to be making an impact in most musicians' lives. They do seem so focused on the here and now that they don't really seem to understand what an impact it really is having. So, what I thought would be interesting is take a look at what you can learn from working out, sports science, or athletic pursuits, and how that ties into music, and how we can become better musicians using the knowledge that we get from those activities. So I've got a list of 6 different things, and then just some general stuff at the end. So here we go. Let's just pop right through it. All right, the first is the differences in pain and problems. So this is the first thing that stood out to me. When you actually look at exercising always involves some form of pain. Playing sports always involves some sort of pain. When we talk about music, you typically have two camps. You have people who are like, just get over it. You're a baby, right? Just practice until your fingers bleed. And then you have the other group that says no pain is ever good. You don't ever want any pain because any pain might result in an injury. The truth, of course, is somewhat in the middle. And sports science has a really good handle on this. You have muscle fatigue. Well, what is really muscle fatigue? It's a buildup of metabolites and other junk, lactic acid in the muscles. That is generally a good thing within reason. Why is it a good thing? Well, it actually is typically signaling a robust stimulus, meaning you did a good workout, and that's going to lead to muscle growth and increased capabilities. I would say the same thing is true with certain things in music. We have, for example, same muscle pain, muscle agony. That can still as well be a really good sign that we're making good progress on adapting our bodies to fit our instrument. Also, calluses, right? Things like that we can see as good pain signals of going, I am doing a good job. I'm actually adapting what I need to do to be good at my instrument. But then there's other types of pains. We got joint pains, connective tissue pains, right? You got tennis elbow, junk like that. You've got potentially even more severe carpal tunnel. Well, let me address those. I think there's actually two really interesting points with these. The first is you can realize that you're probably doing something wrong movement-wise if you continue to have that type of pain, for the most part. And what that tends to be is repetitive motion in a place that your body isn't necessarily strong enough to withstand that joint, right? So muscles then tend to develop first, and then the joints and connective tissue kind of follow on after that. And so you might get to the point where, yes, your back, your arms can handle the load of hours and hours of piano practice, but that joint, that elbow is just not with it. And again, what this may do is tell you you need to experiment with different postures and different places in which you hold your elbow, hold your wrist, etc. to solve the problem. And the first result might be that you just realize that you need to take a little break. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you don't want to just rely on just breaks, because that may just be the sign that your underlying technique is not actually helping you. As you do a deeper dive, though, what you'll find is even our joints and our connective tissues are adaptive. They actually change as we age and as we do more things. And so what I would recommend is being an experimenter with your own body within reason. Think about what causes you pain, experiment with the ranges, experiment with what feels better, what feels worse, and then kind of deduce from how your joints actually move. Like something I love to do with my students, and I do a lot, is think about this joint, then 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 this joint, right? And you want to make sure that they all feel free and able to move however you want them to move. If they feel stiff, that probably is sending a warning signal, hey, maybe my technique's not the best. Last point about this pain, because it's very similar to lifting. Slow, agonizing, lactic acid buildup type pain, awesome. fantastic, the best thing. Aching soreness, probably still good. Sharp pain, uh-oh, we got some problems. Hyper localized pain, uh-oh, problems, right? If you have one tiny little spot in your wrist or in your elbow that is hurting, that's not good. In your fingertip, not good. That seems to tend to say that something's going wrong and you probably need to fix it. All right, let's get into the second thing I wanted to talk about, which is effective rep ranges. Now, in exercise science, they kind of talk about the difference between strength training versus muscle building. And so they have the strength training range, which is lower numbers, anywhere between like 3 to like 10. People disagree, but it's lower numbers. And then you have the hypertrophy range, which is these really, really high rep ranges. I'm not sure I want to go about trying to label what makes sense in terms of rep ranges, but I do like the idea that sometimes you want to really focus, max effort, kind of like you're doing a heavy set, and do it for only a couple. Because let's face it, your brain is going to burn out after those couple. And it's actually very similar with heavy weights. The reason why you can't lift super heavy weights over and over again is actually a lot to do with the mental central nervous system fatigue and less the actual muscular fatigue for most people, because most people tend to have their bodies built up with a lot of slower twitch fibers, which mean they do more better with endurance loads. The higher twitch fibers, those are the ones that kind of burn out fast. And again, this isn't a sports science video, so if I'm getting these facts slightly wrong, feel free to correct me, but ultimately I'm trying to apply this general broad overview to music, and then we'll talk about the benefits of exercising for music, because that's kind of honestly the thing I want to get to as I hit my camera over. So let's talk about these rep ranges. You could do 3 repetitions of a specific passage, hyper high effort, going for it. Or you could do 10 at a lower effort, focusing on 1 or 2 specific details. By the time you get to like 20 or 30 reps, you better be focusing on endurance. You better be focusing on fatigue management, flow state, because you're not going to be doing any heavy mental work at that point. You're not going to be, thinking about the harmony and listening and hearing every note at 30 to 50 reps. So that is, I think, another nugget we can glean from exercise science. Here's number 3, CNS, central nervous system. The more we understand our CNS, the better off we're going to be as musicians and as humans. Let me give you a couple things I have gleaned over the years of working out. The first is potentiation. This idea that one of the main things that keeps us from able to do something is that we haven't done it yet. And so if we do it, and especially if we make it harder, then our nervous system adapts really fast, and then when we pull the difficulty back, it's a piece of cake. So one of the things you can learn from that is if you're trying a hard passage, one of the tricks is you actually can try it faster first. And what that does is it actually primes the nervous system to be like, oh crap, this is really hard. He wants me to do something really, really fast. And then when you pull the difficulty back, it's so much easier. Another really cool thing that you learn is this adaptation and this idea that strength generally comes from the CNS, our CNS adapting much less our actual physiology changing. So we can apply the same thing with music gains. There are physiological changes that will happen to your body permanently or semi-permanently just from playing piano or an instrument for a very long time. It's just true. But what actually gives you those quick gains over days, over weeks, over months is your nervous system adapting to what you ask it to do. Why do you have to play scales every day? Well, it's actually because every time you play scales, you're actually going to be challenging your brain in a way that's leading to that connection, mind-muscle connection with your fingers. See another exercise term there. That builds it into this speed and this understanding there. Let me get into the next thing. So this is number 4, recovery. Well, what can we learn from sports science about recovery? Well, first, it's important. If you're not sleeping, you're not growing. And it's the same with music. If you're not sleeping, you're not getting better at your instrument really, full stop. And I know every college student is pissed at me right now. And I was one of them. I barely slept in college, but it was to my detriment. It wasn't to my benefit. It would be so much better to practice an hour less and get an hour more sleep if you're getting less than, say, 6 hours of sleep. If you're getting more than that, maybe, yeah, you need more practice time. But that's really what you're going to need. You're going to need that robust recovery. That means food, good food. That means drinking water. That means sleeping, taking care of your psychology, actually having restful time periods away from your active activity. So if you love to jam with your friends, that's wonderful and great, but it would be also better for you to have some recovery modality that's away from your main activity, music, to then restore you and make you fresh for the music making. Another amazing thing to talk about is long time horizon. This is the fifth thing that I wanted to talk about. With weightlifting and sports science, they want to talk in terms of years. Why? Because if you want to reach your genetic potential, if you want to be as strong or as big as you want to be, or the best athlete you're going to be, it's going to take years. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in months. It's going to be a year's time frame. Same with music. I think one of the biggest problems we have in music is people want to get good really, really fast. And the truth is, music takes a lot of time. I'm getting very close to my 30th year of playing piano. And I can tell you, I am so much better after so many years of playing piano than I was after the first 5 years, the first 10 years, the first 15 years. So if we can have that long time horizon, it's going to make a huge difference in how we learn and how patient we are with ourselves. Number 6 is the role genetics play. It's too tempting to say that person's really good just because they have the right genetics to play piano. Is it true that there are outliers that are just incredible freaks? Yes. And in many ways, this can actually lower our level of jealousy. Because if we realize that there's a certain level that's just genetic lottery, then we can realize we're never going to be them. Like the way they perceive music may be completely different than we perceive music, so we're never going to be that way. But do you know what you can be? You can be who you are. And this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to make this general point, which is, even though it probably is 50-50, genetics, environment, right? You know, and that's kind of the age-old debate, nature, nurture, right? Even if it is, I would argue it is better to think of it as 90-10, 90 environment, 10 genetics, for this reason. If I perceive that it's in my control and I can do it, then I'm going to work harder. And if I work harder, then I have a better chance of doing it. And you can control the process. You may not be able to control the goal, but you can control the process. So I would highly encourage you to understand, and kind of the same way that you look on Instagram, you see somebody who has a gorgeous physique, they're just super in shape, and realize, you know what? They probably have a low hunger drive. They probably already naturally hold muscle very well. They probably naturally have an activity level that may be higher than yours. All of those things may be true, and that might be why you don't look exactly like them. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you can't get better for what you can do. Let me hit just a couple more just general things. We're going to kind of throw some truisms out there. No pain, no gain. Now, this is not entirely true. You can definitely make gains without pain or with minimal pain. But I do think that there is something to be said. I used to practice a lot because I had a ton of mentors that were like, hey, this shouldn't really hurt. And I kind of disagree with that now. I think if you're practicing and you're really trying to push the envelope, there is going to be some pain necessary. But you have to pay attention to what type of pain. You're looking for the right type of pain. And then the final thing I would say is just this idea of junk volume. You don't want to do too much. Doing too much is actually going to be just as bad, really worse, than doing too little. I'm Robert Monroe. I hope you enjoyed this. And maybe we need to make a follow-up video about the direct correlation I believe that working out and taking care of yourself has on your music making. But for now, let me just leave it to explore the world of health and science around sports and around working out, because it will make you a better musician. All right, peace out.